Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about the comments that I got from my last video. It was a video about me setting up my car to charge my EcoFlow with like about $10 worth of supplies. And I got a lot of comments worrying about safety and how it works. So I'm going to just talk about a little bit about that today. So the most comments I got from my last video, it was about I should install an inline fuse. Which I did for my final installation, but last video it was about just showing if it works or not. So I didn't really have the fuse at the time, but my final installation, I did install the 60 amp inline fuse. I don't know, me pulling 30 amps through the line and inline fuse of 60 amp is necessary, or I should lower the amperage, but I'm not really specialized in that. So if you guys know anything about what amp fuse I should get, just comment down below. Then I will just change out the fuse that is the right size. The second most comments or the questions that I got from my last video, it was about the alternator size. The reason I didn't get the alternator charger from EcoFlow is that because I can even use the full 800 watts of charging capacity with my alternator, because my alternator is not that big and I want to save some room for my alternator to work properly and not overheat. So it wasn't really worth it for me to get the EcoFlow alternator charger. My car is 2001 Toyota Tundra with a 6-cylinder. I'm pretty sure 8-cylinder have a bigger alternator, but with my 6-cylinder, my alternator that comes from the factory is only 80 amps. So running another 30 amps through my system with my charging system is not gonna happen. Especially if I install alternator charger from EcoFlow that takes about 66 amps. With my 80 amp alternator, there is no chance that I can run my EcoFlow alternator charger if I ever bought it. So in order for me to run any type of charger in my car, I actually had to upgrade my alternator. And as you guys know, upgrading the alternator to a bigger amperage is very expensive. But with the Toyota community, there are other options out there, and I bought a Cadillac alternator that fits into different vehicle, and I just fit it into my car, which it gives me 140 amps, and it cost me around 100 bucks. So my original alternator was 80 amps, and my new alternator gives me 140 amps. So I think adding another 30 amps will be just plenty. I could add, if I really wanted to, add 66 amp the EcoFlow alternator charger into my car, but at that point I'm using the full range of my alternator capacity and it's going to overheat for sure, and I don't want that happening if I'm traveling like 2,000 miles away from my house. But still, the good thing about the alternator charger is I can adjust the wattage that I want to put into my EcoFlow, but at that point I don't think it's worth it. For me, at least. Some people are mentioning that the gauge wire that I'm using for my build is too thin. I'm currently using the 12 gauge wire, but they're saying that I should use 8 gauge wire. First of all, I did use the DC gauge wire calculator online. Basically, I put the length of the wire that I'm going to run and the voltage I'm supplying, and then the end voltage I want to be out of. And after putting in all the information, the 12 gauge wire was sufficient. So before I did the whole test with the shorter wire, it did give me the 14 volts from my alternator. But now with how long the wire is from my engine bay to all the way to my bed, it only gives me 12 volts, but 12 volts is just fine for my EcoFlow. So currently it's charging at a little bit under 400 watts. And secondly, those XT60i connectors are not capable of taking 8 gauge wires. The biggest gauge wire you can put in is the 10 gauge. And if you want to put more amps through it, you need to upgrade to XT80 or 90. I don't know what connectors are out there. But with the XT60i cables, connectors, the maximum you can put in is 10 gauge. And when you're trying to solder everything through on the connector, you can see that those connectors are pretty small. So when I was soldering on my 12 gauge wire, and it was just right around the size. And one last thing I want to mention about doing this build and buying XT60i cable connectors on Amazon is that you got to really watch out for what you're buying. Because even though those are listed as XT60i, but they don't really have the negative to neutral or neutral to positive connections. So that the EcoFlow doesn't recognize that as XT60i, we just recognize that as XT60. Some guy actually left a really good comment saying that the XC60i when it's connected to the neutral, when it's connected to the negative, it does something different, and when it connects to the positive, it does something different. So yeah, I guess they just leave it as a blank so that you can decide on which connectors to use. But you can actually search up like XC60i cables, convert it to XC60 cables for EcoFlow, or XC60i cables for EcoFlow, or just read through the reviews and read through the descriptions, and it will let you know that the prong is connected to the negative or positive. Just letting you know that if you just buy any random cheap XC60i cables, it's not gonna have that connection, and it's not gonna work with your EcoFlow until you make the connections. Now I'm gonna show you guys my final installation on my vehicle. Okay, currently I have my EcoFlow right here, and if you see the back, I have 4 cables coming out, and the 2 of the connectors are all connected. Those 2 positive cables are running to my relay, and 2 negative cables are running to my frame. So I only have to run the 1 long cable to my engine bay. And if you see, I put a corrugated plastic protection on it, and this cable, the short one, it goes to inside the cap with the switch, and those cables run all the way to my engine bay. Comes out behind this plastic cap and comes all the way here, up here, and to my switch right here. So from my battery, it goes to the 60 amp fuse. I need to tie this up somewhere, and then it goes to my 200 amp relay, and then this is a 2 gauge wire, and then it splits into the 12 gauge wire, and this both go to the battery, and this black cable goes to the switch, and here's the connection. Somebody asked me why didn't I use automatic isolator instead of the relay. The only reason I use my relay instead of isolator is that I want to control when I charge my battery. For example, if I'm using AC and like high beams and fog light and bar light and winch, and at that time I don't want to charge my battery because I don't want to overheat my alternator. But with the automatic isolator, it will always charge my battery if my car is running and my alternator is on. So I don't really have the manual control. There are some other isolator that has like the switch, but I cannot find any information on how long I can use it to like bypass like the system or something. So I just want to end up with the relay because I like to have the control with my finger. So right now I have an AC on full blast, I have a high beams on and fog light on, and then dome light, and I am currently pulling 60 amps. And now if I press this button, it will start charging my EcoFlow at 30 amps. So it's charging right now around 360 watts. It is pulling 86, 85, almost 90. If I check the amp here, it is drawing 29 amps. With my EcoFlow charging, and I got the laser thermometer, and my alternator, it is a 133 case, and inside of it is around 170, 60-ish. It's been running for about 30 minutes now. This is the cable that goes to the battery. It is showing 120, and if I touch it, it's kind of like warm, I guess. Right now my engine bay temperature is 110, so this is being 130-ish is not that bad. And these are the two small cables that goes to the battery. And 116. Yeah, the cable is showing maybe 110, 120. I think I was kind of like overshooting into the engine bay because the engine is 130-ish. Yeah, there's no way this is like 150. It's like lukewarm. I guess everything's working well. The temperature checks out, the amperage draw checks out, and I think I'm kind of safe. So hopefully my car doesn't burn down for my next road trip that is coming up in a month. And I'm gonna be out for about 4 to 5 months now. But I still need to build my bed. So if you guys want to see how I build my bed, please subscribe. Yeah, like the video. There are a lot of other people that does car camping nowadays, but I've been doing this for about almost about 7 years now, even before everything got so popular. Yeah, but